You can't eat gold, and you can't drink dollar bills. Yet most people still believe money or gold will protect them in a collapse. That's the expectation, but the reality is way different. When survival is on the line, no one cares about shiny metal. They care about the things we will talk about today. Most of us grew up believing two things would always hold value: money in the bank and gold in the vault. Generations were taught that as long as you had dollars in your pocket or gold in your safe, you'd never truly be poor. That's the expectation. But history tells a much darker story. Both money and gold can become worthless almost overnight when society stumbles. Take Germany after World War I. The country was drowning in debt, and its government started printing more and more paper marks to cover the shortfall. At first, people barely noticed. A loaf of bread that cost a few marks in 1921 crept up in price. Then, it exploded. By November 1923, a loaf cost 200 billion marks. Families would rush to spend their paychecks the minute they received them because, by the end of the day, their wages might be worth half as much. People carried wages in wheelbarrows, not wallets. Children played with stacks of worthless bills as if they were building blocks. The expectation that money was stable collapsed into the reality that paper can be shredded, reprinted, and inflated into dust. This wasn't just a European nightmare. Bolivia went through something similar in the 1980s. In 1985, inflation surged to a staggering 38,000% in just 6 months. If you bought a soda in January for $1, then walked back in June, that same soda would cost nearly $400. For Bolivians, money became little more than a cruel joke. Paychecks weren't worth the paper they were printed on, and people had to invent new ways of surviving. Zimbabwe's story might even be more familiar. In the 2000s, inflation ran so wild that the government actually printed a $100 trillion note. But even that note could barely buy a loaf of bread. People stopped trusting their money altogether. Farmers, shopkeepers, and families turned to barter because paper money had lost every ounce of power. And then there's Venezuela in recent years. Once one of the richest nations in Latin America, its economy crumbled under political turmoil and falling oil revenues. Citizens found their savings turning to dust as inflation climbed into the millions of percent. Mothers traded jewelry for powdered milk. Families pawned heirlooms just to buy rice or medicine. The Venezuelan bolivar wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. And even US dollars, once a safe backup, became harder and harder to find. All of these stories point to one uncomfortable truth. Money only has value as long as people believe in it. When governments print too much of it, or when trust in the system shatters, money becomes no more valuable than wallpaper. So what about gold? For centuries, gold has been painted as the ultimate safe haven. It doesn't rust, it doesn't corrode, and it has been prized by kings and commoners alike. But in a collapse, gold has serious weaknesses. You can't eat it. You can't use it to heat your home. You can't treat a wound with it or fix a broken roof. At best, gold is a shiny object that has value only if the person you're trading with still believes in it. Even then, trading gold is tricky. It isn't liquid like paper bills. You can't shave off a corner of a gold bar at the local market and hope someone takes it for a loaf of bread. You need a scale, an appraiser, and a buyer who's willing to gamble that it's real. All of that takes time, and in the middle of a crisis, time is something you may not have. Worse, gold makes you a target. If word gets out that you're sitting on a pile of bullion or jewelry, desperate neighbors or roaming thieves may come knocking. Unlike skills or knowledge, gold can be stolen. Its very presence can put your family in danger. And that's the sharp divide between expectation and reality. The expectation is that if everything goes wrong, gold will save you. The reality is that in the moments when survival is on the line, gold will weigh you down and paint a target on your back. So if cash and gold can both fail, what takes their place? When official money fails, history shows that people don't give up. They fall back on something older, something more human: barter. In 2008, during the global financial crisis, bartering made a comeback in America. Cash flow dried up for many small businesses, and barter networks suddenly surged. Companies traded office supplies for services. Families swapped babysitting for groceries. According to reports at the time, barter exchanges saw their trade volumes rise by as much as 35%. When trust in the dollar wavered, people instinctively reached for the oldest economy in the book. I'll give you what I can do. You give me what I need. But barter has a hidden lesson that most people overlook. Goods are useful until they run out. You can only trade so many bags of rice before your pantry's empty. You can only swap so many cans of beans before your shelves are bare. Consumables are finite, and in a crisis that drags on for months or even years, finite means fragile. Skills, on the other hand, don't run out. they can be traded again and again. The neighbor who knows how to fix a generator doesn't just trade once. He becomes the go-to person every time the lights flicker out. Skills regenerate while goods deplete. That's why in every prolonged crisis, those who have practical knowledge rise to the top of the barter chain. There's a saying, your brain is your best bug-out bag. The meaning's simple. You can lose your stockpile, you can have your home ransacked, but no one can steal what you know. The skills in your head go with you everywhere, and in a barter economy, they're the closest thing to real, lasting currency. That's the power shift. Money crumbles, gold loses its shine, pantries eventually go bare, but skills keep paying dividends. They keep you useful, they keep you fed, and they keep you in demand. So the natural question becomes, which skills actually buy survival when society breaks down? The first and most immediate survival skill is medical knowledge. In a world where hospitals might be overwhelmed, pharmacies empty, and ambulances no longer running, the person who knows how to treat injuries instantly becomes more valuable than anyone sitting on a pile of gold. Think of it this way, in any disaster, accidents multiply. People cut themselves clearing debris, twist ankles while carrying supplies, burn hands trying to cook over open flames. Normally, you'd run to the ER or call an ambulance. But what if those doors are shut? That's where medical know-how shines. Even basic first aid, stopping bleeding, cleaning a wound, setting a broken bone, or knowing how to reduce a fever can save lives. And the value isn't abstract. Imagine two neighbors. One has gold coins tucked in a safe. The other has a stocked first aid kit and the training to use it. When a child steps on a rusty nail, who do you think the family will run to? The neighbor with medical skills, not the one with the shiny metal. History backs this up. In times of war, collapse, or plague, doctors, nurses, and even medics with basic training have been protected and fed by their communities because their skills were too vital to lose. And you don't need a medical degree to carry this kind of currency. Classes in CPR, first aid, or wilderness medicine all turn knowledge into a resource. But you can't do anything with an empty stomach, and that's where the second skill comes in. The second skill is food. Everybody eats, every single day. And when grocery stores close, knowing how to produce food makes you king of the barter chain. During Zimbabwe's hyperinflation, families sold gold jewelry for sacks of wheat. In Venezuela, heirlooms were exchanged for powdered milk. In every collapse, food is the real gold. Gardening's the first step. Knowing how to plant, nurture, and harvest vegetables gives you a renewable supply of calories. Seed saving makes it sustainable. Without the skills to harvest seeds and replant, one season's garden is just a temporary fix. With it, you can create an endless food cycle, but growing is only half the story. Preservation's the other. Canning, dehydrating, pickling, and smoking food stretch today's harvest into tomorrow's meals. A bushel of tomatoes rots in a week, but canned tomatoes last for years. Knowledge of how to preserve food becomes a multiplier of value, not just feeding your family, but giving you trade goods in a barter economy. And then there's hunting and fishing. A single deer can feed a family for weeks. A well-stocked pond can provide a community with protein long after shelves go empty. Knowing how to track, trap, and fish ensures you always have something to put on the table and something to trade when others are hungry. There's only one thing more important than food, and that's water. Water's even more urgent than food. You can survive weeks without eating, but only a few days without water. When municipal systems shut down, the ability to find and purify water becomes priceless. The simplest method is boiling, but not everyone knows how to keep water at a rolling boil to kill pathogens. Then there's filtration, using portable filters, homemade sand filters, or even improvised cloth layers to remove contaminants. Chemical purification with iodine or chlorine is another tool. Each method has its place, but the real currency lies in knowing when and how to use them safely. Hurricane stories prove this. After major storms in the US, water lines often break and bottled water flies off shelves. Families who knew how to collect rainwater in barrels, purify it, and store it safely thrived, while others waited in endless relief lines. Being the person who can find a spring, dig a well, or set up a catchment system makes you indispensable. In barter terms, the neighbor who brings safe drinking water to the table will always walk away with food, fuel, or protection in exchange. You had food to eat and water to drink, but now you need a place to stay. When storms rip off roofs or earthquakes crack walls, shelter skills become the next survival currency. Humans can't survive long exposed to cold, heat, or rain. That's why carpenters, builders, and anyone with repair skills rise in value when things fall apart. Imagine a family whose roof has caved in. They can't sleep under the stars with children and elderly relatives. They may have food, but without shelter, they're desperate. A carpenter with nails, wood, and know-how can trade repairs for weeks of food. Even small repairs like patching leaks, boarding up broken windows, reinforcing doors makes you indispensable. In every historical collapse, from war-torn towns to post-storm communities, builders were the backbone of recovery. Their skills created homes, fixed storage barns, and protected families. Gold won't keep the rain off your head, but a neighbor who knows how to build a roof will. The modern world runs on machines, cars, tractors, generators, and pumps. When society falters, those who can fix machines hold the keys to survival. Picture a rural community after a collapse. They've got fuel reserves and an old tractor, but the engine fails. Without it, fields can't be plowed and harvests shrink. A mechanic who can repair that tractor feeds the entire town. A generator sitting idle is just a hunk of metal until someone with knowledge sparks it back to life. People who understand wiring, solar panels, and battery banks can literally bring light to the dark. There are countless stories of disaster zones where communities survived because someone knew how to cobble together power systems from spare parts, a car battery here, a solar panel there. That skill is pure currency. In times like these, people often look to steal if they don't have things. And that's where the next skill comes in handy. Security isn't about violence, it's about protecting what you already have. In unstable times, desperation leads to theft. A pantry full of canned goods is useless if you can't keep it safe. Skills here range from simple home security, setting up alarms, reinforcing doors, to personal defense training. Knowing how to de-escalate, how to stay alert, and how to defend without recklessness is the true skill. Communities that survive chaos always have a system of protection. It might be patrols, watch shifts, or trained individuals who can stand guard. People will gladly trade food, fuel, or labor in exchange for safety, because in collapse, safety itself is a service. Fire is one of the oldest survival skills, and still one of the most valuable. Fire means warmth, cooked food, boiled water, and even morale. The person who can start a fire in wet conditions, build a rocket stove from bricks, or safely manage wood and propane will never be without value. Families without heat will trade nearly anything for the knowledge that keeps them warm at night. Energy management is the modern extension of fire. Knowing how to ration fuel, set up solar cookers, or create efficient heating systems makes you the community's lifeline. But what if you needed to go somewhere? You won't have Google or Apple Maps. That's why knowing the next skill is crucial. When satellites go down and phone towers fall silent, old-school navigations and communication skills suddenly matter again. Being able to read a paper map, use a compass, or track by landmarks can lead people to safety. In wilderness rescues and military history alike, those who could navigate often determine who lived and who got lost. Communication is just as powerful. After hurricanes in Florida, ham radio operators became the only link between communities and outside help. They coordinated relief, passed messages, and gave people hope. In a barter economy, information is power. If you can tell people where aid is coming from or how to reach a safe route, you'll never be without something to trade. Navigation and comm skills make you the messenger, and in a crisis, the messenger is priceless. Modern life makes us forget how valuable old trades are. Blacksmithing, sewing, leatherworking, shoemaking, and simple repairs used to be everyday necessities. In collapse, they become precious again. The same goes for sewing. A skilled seamstress can patch clothes, make blankets, or turn scraps into useful garments. These small skills ripple out into survival. Blacksmiths or wielders who can fix tools, shape metal, or repair farm gear become cornerstones of their community. Every hammer, every plow, every knife will need upkeep. If there's one thing as important as all of the above to get out from a situation like this, it's leadership. And finally, the soft skill that ties everything together: leadership. No one survives long alone. Communities are survival banks, pooling resources and protecting each other. But communities need organizers, people who can mediate disputes, divide tasks, and keep morale steady. Trust and reputation become currencies in themselves. If you're reliable, fair, and able to lead, others will follow. And when they follow, they'll share. History shows this again and again. Towns recover from war or disaster, not just because of food or tools, but because of leaders who hold people together. Leadership may not look as flashy as starting a fire or stitching a wound, but it's the currency that multiplies all the others. A skilled leader makes every other survival skill more valuable because they turn individuals into a functioning group. For a long time, prepping carried an image that made ordinary people roll their eyes. It conjured up people digging underground bunkers, stockpiling ammo, or whispering about end-of-the-world dates. But that picture is outdated. Today, preparedness is mainstream, practical, and far less about paranoia than peace of mind. Take Costco as an example. It's one of the biggest retailers in America, And yet, in recent years, Costco has rolled out entire emergency food buckets. These tubs contain weeks' worth of freeze-dried meals and staples, stacked neatly on shelves right next to paper towels and laundry detergent. You don't need to live in the woods or wear camouflage to buy them. You just toss one in your cart on your next shopping trip. That's how normal prepping has become. Families across the country are doing the same in quieter ways. More than half of US households now admit they keep some kind of food storage, whether that's canned soup in the basement, bulk rice from Sam's Club, or bottled water stacked in the garage. It's no longer eccentric to have extra supplies. It's just common sense. Why the shift? Because life has given us wake-up calls. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 showed millions what happens when infrastructure fails and shelves empty in days. The 2008 financial crisis reminded people that money can dry up quickly. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 seared one lesson into everybody's mind: supply chains break. Prepping today is less about doomsday and more about insurance. We don't look at our car insurance and say, wow, that's paranoid. We see it as protection in case of an accident. Prepping is the same thing, except the accident might be a power outage, a blizzard, or a layoff that cuts your paycheck in half. And the skills and habits you build to prepare for collapse aren't only useful in collapse. They improve your everyday life. Prepping without fear also means prepping with community. You don't need to imagine yourself as a lone wolf with a bunker. In fact, history shows the opposite. People survive better together. Sharing knowledge, pooling supplies, and trade labor creates safety nets that no pile of canned beans can match. A neighbor that looks out for each other will always outlast one person trying to go it alone. So what does this look like in practice? Maybe it's a family keeping a month of food and water on hand. Maybe it's learning one new skill every season: gardening in spring, canning in summer, first aid in fall, fire starting in winter. Maybe it's having a backup generator in the garage or a solar kit on the roof. These aren't acts of fear. They're acts of freedom. They make you less dependent on fragile systems and more confident when life throws curveballs. By investing in skills now, you're wealthier than anyone holding gold. A pantry of food, a brain full of knowledge, and hands that know how to work. Those are riches that can't vanish in a bank run or be stolen in the night. They're yours forever.